Hey guys, I have how are you guys today?
Good, how are you doing?
Great.
Good. To my audience, welcome back to my channel, I Love You Packages, where I share with you all things to help improve your marriage. And today I have with me Tanya and Matt, and they are both marriage coaches. For some reason, I always want to say counselors, but they're marriage coaches. And today we're going to be talking about forgiveness in marriage. That is a very vital point in order for a marriage to survive. I'm with you 100% on that. So we want to hear some insight from them um, on this topic, and I'm super excited to talk with them. How long have you guys been married?
It'll be 12 years in September.
Yeah.
12 years. Okay. Yeah. And how long you've been coaching for in this topic?
We just started this year, so this is
Mhm.
a new venture for us.
Yeah, in the
Right.
last couple of months.
Awesome, awesome. That's the thing. When you're married for so long, you have that experience, and and then when you go ahead and take it to that next level, it's just like so awesome. It's like it's one of those things that experience and then the knowledge of it is like so great. Um, and do you coach together, or do you coach the women and he coach the men? Like, how does your coaching work?
So for our marriage coaching, we do it together, and now we each kind of do our own individual thing outside of that. But marriage coaching we do with couples, so we both do it together with the couple together.
Oh, that's nice. Awesome. And I'll let you share all your information but at the end of the interview where people can find you and get some coaching from you. So my first question to you is um, what are some common barriers or challenges that couples face when trying to forgive each other?
You want to start?
Did I say that right? Some common barriers or challenges, yeah, that couples face when trying to forgive each other.
Yeah, and feel free to jump in whenever. But I can speak from my end and my experience, um, as well as what I think are common pitfalls for just any marriage. So I think we tally a list and then we become resentful, and
Mm,
that can turn into anger.
yeah,
And if we don't let go of that anger, it will destroy a marriage.
yeah.
And I know that's happened with within our marriage with some of the experiences we've been through, at least on my end.
Mhm.
And I think that really, if you do that with anyone, you're going to destroy the relationship. But in particular, a marriage where you need that intimacy
Yes,
in order
yes.
to survive,
Yep.
in order to function, it's really important to just, how do I say it? You just gotta let it go. You
Yeah,
can't keep a list, and that is so hard. Like I have a little bit of a list. It goes up like that,
yeah.
and I have to let it go, and it goes down like that, and then it starts to go up. It's like a daily process of just kind of letting that go.
Yeah,
If you can do it daily, um,
right.
marriage is hard. Marriage is really hard, but it's worth it on the other end. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I see.
Yeah, I think too, it's just I know for me, it's forgiveness can't be contingent on the other person's behavior. Like if I'm forgiving you, it's not I'm forgiving you because you're doing anything different. It's literally because I want to protect my own forgiveness with God. Like if I don't forgive you, God doesn't forgive me. And so it's almost kind of like a selfish act in a way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's realizing too that like we can't be in right relationship if there's this resentment and I become bound to you. Like if I don't forgive you, I am now controlled by you because I'm not okay and I'm losing sleep.
Right.
I think it's realizing that we were not created to live like that. Um, and understanding that if I give forgiveness, that's where change can happen. Because if I'm sitting
Exactly.
there and I'm angry and I'm watching every move that you make, it
Right.
doesn't give me much room to change. Because I'm waiting for you to just confirm that you're still going to do the thing I think you're going to do. And it
Right.
makes, I mean, relationship is impossible in those circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that we're having this topic discussion because we my family we had a little not a powwow last night, which is good. All of us were sitting in the living room discussing some things. And I was like, wow, this is really good. I think we need to talk about these things, and it's good that we're getting it off our chest, and I was telling my son, I was trying to share with him, sometimes we hear things, but we have to like examine it. Is this the right thing that they're saying? And sometimes it could be very hard to swallow, you know, but we have to really, is this right? Is it true? Is it not true? And we have to decide, what are we going to do with it, or else we're going to be sick with it if we don't deal with it right, So yeah, it is hard, but we really have to digest it in the proper way, and be done with it, and move on. Like you have to move on. And that, which is another question, like, how do you move on from unforgiveness, like, or from forgiveness? Like, how do you move on if, one, you haven't gotten an apology, or you don't even, like, you didn't even share that you want an apology? Like, how do you even move on from that?
Yeah.
Can you even move on from it?
Yeah, no, you can move on. I think what Tanya said was it's really not contingent on the other person. So
Right,
keeping that in mind as you move forward, you just are responsible for your own actions.
right.
And when you look at, like, we have three young children, 9, 8, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
But old enough to and impressionable enough at this age to watch us and then model our behavior currently and in the future. We're setting the foundation for how they will interact with their spouse one day.
Mm,
And when you really view it through that lens, you realize that everything you do, you're responsible for it. When my sons model my behavior in the marriage,
mm,
that was my choice, despite what happens in the marriage. That makes it real practical and like real, I don't know, something that I can grasp onto to go, okay, like, you know, is this how I want them to act? No, I don't. So I should probably not act like that.
right, right. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's just the front part of the brain that I start to activate to be able to process through that. But emotionally, it's way harder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is the difficult part because we can all logically kind of get there and like, oh yeah, they're sorry or they're sorry. We can maneuver through that. But emotionally, it's much more difficult um, to move through. And if someone's not sorry, you can still, this is one thing that I'm still working through exactly the terminology and the words. It's kind of semantics, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I'll just say it like this: it's up to us to forgive. You're going to carry that for the rest of your life if you don't. If you
Yeah.
don't get that off your heart, it's kind of like that resentment. It builds up. You're tallying, and it will destroy you. And if you let that go in a marriage, I think that's one of the most powerful ways to get yourself to the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Want to just take a straight decline. And then if you
That's
do that
right.
with everyone, there's it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
But if you're able to let
Literally
that
tap
go,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you're able to let that go and really just allow God to work, God to influence your heart, and realize that you're the only one who pays for that resentment that's building,
Mm-hmm.
and really just let that go. Sometimes we have to get to the end of ourselves in order to get there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happened for me is I push. I'm really stubborn. I'm really driven. Push, push, push. No, this marriage is going to work. And then the person's not sorry. They're
Mm,
not saying I'm sorry. They're not living an honest life. And you go, well, there's nothing I can do. And then you start to resent that because now my children are experiencing this and I'm experiencing this. Is not the life I signed up for. That's not what the vows said.
right.
And you really just have to realize that you're not in control of life. And
Mm,
when you hit that end of yourself and you're able to just kind of say, all right, there's something else out there. I call it God, right? It's
mm,
it's my it's who I know is in control of my life, but I
right.
don't have ultimate control.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I believe that God wants something good for me, and I can go through anything with him. And if I do that, then on the other end, I will be stronger. I will learn a lesson. Uh, whatever the outcome is that I'm trying to learn, or that God's trying to teach me,
Right.
to accept that, and that this is the path. That's my personal journey, and I think that's honestly, at least it's powerful for me, and I think it probably is powerful for other people to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it also takes a whole lot of humility and humbleness, um, because
Yeah.
I know when I'm in the wrong, I want a whole lot of grace and mercy. But when I think I'm right and the other person's in the wrong, I don't necessarily have that same mercy and grace to want
Yeah.
to like extend out. And
Mhm.
I think being able to see yourself as being the same as the person that you're upset with, like as
That's
yourself,
good.
being able to see myself as someone messing, like a sinner, a broken human being who
Right.
needs understanding.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and like one of the things I keep saying to the kids is you can be right or you can have relationship. Like you can't have both. And so
Mm.
surrendering my need to be right all the time and like that things need to make sense to me and my need for justice the way I see it. Um,
Mhm.
because if I'm holding on to that, like I don't have relationship until you check off these boxes or make me feel this way, we're not okay. And our relationship suffers, everything suffers. Like I become the worst version of myself because I
Mm.
feel like unforgiveness is like a poison and it just starts to like take you from this vibrant human that God created into a bitter, resentful, like just the worst version of yourself.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And I think this question could be for you, Tanya. Tanya, um, as from a woman, from women to women, like how can you strike a balance between forgiving and setting healthy boundaries in the marriage? And I'm really asking about the setting healthy boundaries in the marriage because from a biblical perspective, because the women, we have such a role um in the marriage. So how do we like set those boundaries with our husbands? Um, I don't know, am I saying that right?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's something I'm still working on. Because like understanding that I have a voice and really it's like if I'm
Right.
going to be
Yeah.
a good helpmate to my husband,
Hmm.
we need to be on the same page.
Right.
And I love Lisa Turkhurst breaks down boundaries as access and responsibility. And if he's not being responsible with the amount of access I'm giving him to my resources, like my time, my energy, my love, my emotions, we
Hmm.
need to start to pull back because all I can do is try to protect my integrity. And I think if I'm thinking of it as I'm going to make sure I'm doing what I need to do to be the best version of myself and allow him the freedom to choose who he wants to be, how he wants to be, that's exactly what God does. Like God gives us free will and perfect love has to have choice. Otherwise, I'm controlling.
Mm.
I,
Yeah.
I view it from that angle of if I'm allowing myself to operate out of a space of integrity within my marriage and giving my husband the freedom to make his own choices and just kind of like, okay, like here are the lines. If we're gonna fight and you're gonna call me names, all right, we have to stop talking.
Right.
I'm back when we
Absolutely.
can treat each other with respect.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
just simple things like that. And it's easier to say when you're calm and rational. It's very hard when you're like emotionally charged to
Mhm.
remember to do those things. But I do like just thinking about I'm going to do everything I can to be the best version of myself and basically try to help bring my husband up rather than like pull us down even further.
Mm. That's
Because
good.
that's what ends up happening, like we spiral to the bottom.
Right. Yeah, I like how you say we have to be on the same page, right? We have to be on that same page. Um, that's good. Um, and how can a couple rebuild trust after forgiveness? And what are some indicators that trust is being successfully restored?
So this is a big one for us. Our story is a super, super messy one. So in just to give a little context to the situation, I am an alcoholic in recovery. So I've been in recovery for a little over 2 years now. And I basically committed like just about every sin I could. I lied about everything. I was stealing money. I like put us almost into financial ruin. I had affairs outside of our marriage. I just was living in just absolute, utter sin. So this is a huge thing, what it looked like to have forgiveness and to start to like build trust. And for us at first, it was things like financially, if I'm spending money, I'm showing receipts. I'm willing to show every receipt for every purchase I make. He has full access to all accounts. There were no like passwords that were had that he didn't know. And it was the ability to kind of like verify, turning on my GPS so like he knows where I'm at. So he could see like, okay, I say I'm going here. I'm
Wow.
actually
Yeah. Mm.
And I'll let him speak a little bit more, but those are some of like the practical things on my end. And it was just the consistency of like doing what I said I'm going to do when I said I was going to do it. And like the painful process of having to own up when I wasn't, like when I was falling short or maybe not being as consistent as I needed to be for us to continue to heal.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I know with me and my on the other end, my problem was anger. I got really angry and resentful, and it changed my life. And how do you rebuild trust, from that point? Well, first you got to get rid of the resentment. That's number one. You got to give your life over to God. I don't see another way to do it, to believe that he wants something better for you. And I'm a Christian, so that meant fully giving access to God,
Right.
to my life, to God, and just realizing that things don't happen to me; they happen for me. With that mindset, if you
Right.
want the best.
Absolutely.
And I realized, well, one, there's that whole spiritual side of it where you have to give up yourself. Two, you have to commit to the marriage, and it's a long road to get to that. Sometimes you're going to hit the bottom, or what you think is bottom. There's a lower level and a lower level and a lower level, and it's going to seem like it's never ending. But eventually you hit that point. At least I did. We both did, I think, where we kind of looked at each other and said, do you want to do this or not? And some real honesty within that conversation. And I think if you don't have that real honest conversation, then there's no foundation, and you have to start to build off that honesty. So transparency, communication was a big deal for us. So wherever there was lies, there needed to be a lot of transparency, and anything that we agreed to do, it was for both of us. So if there was, what were some of the examples you gave? The, like location sharing. Gosh, if that was one-sided, it sounds pretty controlling. And what I'm trying to do is not control.
No, not at all.
So it was, all right.
That's love.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm going to share my location, you share yours. We're going to communicate, and we're going to make sure we're communicating about finances. And we're going to, like, if there's an expense that was spent that pops up in our online statement, we needed to be able to communicate that. And honestly, we needed to be able to communicate that before we actually made an expense, which is what we agreed to do.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. There's just, you have to start somewhere and have some agreement somewhere. And that foundation of trust to then build. If you're still living in lies, you can't do it. So one of the things we tried to do, we hit bottom multiple times, we thought, and we started to move on with that foundation of what we called trust, but there wasn't that foundation of trust. One, because, she was still lying at that point, for a while as she tried to get out of it. And two, I was becoming resentful, and you can't start to build trust when you're resentful.
Right.
Really choice and giving up yourself for the greater good. I mean, this is like giving up control of your life to God, giving up control of your marriage. Even though you might want that for you and your children and have all these goals and all these things, and you're trying to control, and then you got to release.
Yeah.
And that is just hard. And it's a process. It's going to take
as much time.
As much time as it takes.
As much time as it takes, but
Yeah.
expect at least a year if it's really bad, probably 2.
Mm.
We had counseling too. So we
Oh yeah,
made sure
that's enough.
individually and together was a huge thing. Um,
Yeah, you gotta really make sure you're doing the right thing. So you can assume you're communicating well, but then are you really? Like, how do you verify that? Well, you got to go to a third party who's not
Right.
emotionally invested. We call that counseling. So, or I don't want to say coaching, because coaching is more of a less instructional and more of like encouragement, guidance. I've been there, I understand, that kind of
future focus,
yeah,
yeah.
future focused, as opposed to kind of digging up the past and working through that stuff. Um, but we had a marriage coach who we met with weekly. We had our own personal counselors who we met with weekly.
Mm.
I got involved. She was involved in a Christian recovery group
Mm.
because of her circumstances. On the other end, I was involved with a recovery group for people who have alcoholic loved ones called Al-Anon. I
Mhm.
still am involved with that, and she's still involved with her recovery group, and
Mm.
that gave me a sponsor, which from someone who's been there, done that, almost like a coach in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it was just show
Yeah.
up day after day and try and let it go. And, on the other end of it, just one day you just go, I don't think we need to go through the receipts today. It's like, you've been pretty consistent. Let's just follow up at a later time. And maybe 2 weeks later we look through, or a month later. And now it's just kind of like as needed. We're just communicating, and anything that pops up, we don't need to talk about the finances as much anymore. But you got to trust but verify in that way. But when we built up trust, that's when we moved on,
Right.
um, to that process.
And it's
There's
in
no easy
community.
answer.
Yeah, I was going to say you need community. I think had Matt and I tried to do this in isolation or just with counseling, it would not have worked.
Mm.
I think it was with a really strong, like I had some really amazing women come into my life who just were able to love me well in spite of myself, really, at the time.
Mhm.
And Matthew was fortunate to get connected to some really wonderful men who came and just, again, loved him well and encouraged us and spoke into our marriage. Like, I think what can be really easy, even if you're dealing with a forgiveness incident that's not as big as something like this, is who are you going to and who are you allowing to speak into this vulnerable space? Because if you're going to people who just go like, oh, well, your husband shouldn't treat you like that, or your wife doesn't, this, it
Mhm.
just furthers. It
Yeah.
furthers that unforgiveness. It builds the resentment. So I think community is important, but the right community and
Right.
having
Community.
wise people speak into.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. How long have you been believers?
Oh gosh.
Was that is
So,
that is that
yeah.
go ahead.
I have like a weird story with that where I found God in high school, but I don't know that I truly knew who he was until like probably about 2 years ago.
Got
Um,
it.
I
Mm.
think that I was just very confused on who, like, I could tell you all about what God could do for you, but did not believe that held true for me.
Mhm. Yep.
And
Mhm.
so it's been a lot of time of God just kind of like gracefully walking me through who he really is and allowing me to start to really come into real relationship with him.
Yeah. I was gonna say because we always say, me and my husband, that it takes, like you said, a village. It takes um not that it takes more than God, but yeah, he's there for us, but we have to do the practical stuff, like get the counselors, he's given them the wisdom to help us, right? To get through those difficult times. And we as a couple have to hold each other accountable to those things. We have to withstand each other in the face because we love and we want our marriage to work. And so yeah, well, I was saying I wanted to know, like, how long were you with believers, and then with the counseling and everything. It's for me, I'm not gonna say it's hard to find those women, but that's another step that I have to take to find those people to help me, those right people to help whatever it is that I'm going through, and I need help in my marriage. Um, so that is good that you found, a group of women that you can hang out with. I'm just finding a group of women that I can hang out with and talk with, about personal things. That's why I asked you coach the women and he coached the men because sometimes it needs to be that one-on-one, you know. But then sometimes you need that couple because they need to see that you can make it, and you can get through it together. And look at you now, coaching other women and men. Like that's awesome. I love it.
Well, I mean, I think that's the redemptive nature of God, is like he can turn what was meant for evil into something good. And like
Absolutely. Yeah.
help one couple see it's possible, like
Mm.
that nothing is out of God's reach.
No.
We can't, because it's hard. Like, it's not fun to have to sit there and own the uglier parts of who I chose to be in that season of life. But if it can help spark hope for someone to be like, okay, well, if they made it through that, then we can make it through this thing, whatever that thing can be. Because there's
Right.
so much when you're living life with another person who has their own baggage and their own story. Like,
Mm,
it's hard. It's so hard.
it is. Yeah.
That was the
That.
first thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first things I started to look for, was like, has anyone ever made it through something like this?
Mm,
And I'm like, I reached out to some pastors looking for resources. They connected me with Right Now Media, which is a pretty good platform if you're able to get access, and a lot of churches buy access to that. And
mm-hmm.
it's testimonials from couples who've been there, done that, and a lot of that stuff.
Right.
They have a lot of stuff. But
Mm,
yeah, I can't overstate community. I know you got to be very careful with your community, though,
yeah.
because if you accept anyone into your life, you're accepting, and you won't be able to recognize it when you're emotionally down.
Right.
Like when I found out about everything, I was you go into panic mode, and if you get the wrong person speaking into you and telling you some things that are off,
Absolutely.
even if it's mostly right, you got to be very careful,
Yeah.
because that little bit off can really steer you
Mm,
down the wrong path.
yep.
And I know one person in my life, because we had multiple waves of this, of our marriage breaking down,
Mm-hmm.
get up, and then we'd fall back down. One guy in particular, he I'm looking at what the Bible says about divorce. I want to know everything I can, right? That's what I started looking into when it was just like the second time it came through. We're living in she's living in dishonesty, and I'm starting to become where I can't handle it anymore
Mm,
alone. Um, he I asked for his honest opinions about stuff, and he did not cater to make the message. I don't want to say soft. It was truthful. It was loving and truthful.
mm,
And he personally believed that nowhere in the Bible does it say you can remarry. And
mm,
I know this is a hot topic amongst
mm-hmm.
Christians, especially that are divorced. And I had to contend with that. And I knew he knew the Bible inside and out. He's like, look it up. He's like, it doesn't say anywhere. It says you can get divorced, but it doesn't say start your life over unless the spouse dies. And I'm
Like,
just like, yeah. And I'm like, marriage is for life.
uh,
So I started to view it, and if I had the wrong person in my ear, I probably would have went a different way.
mm,
But I just started looking at his marriages for life, and when someone's down, what is marriage? Marriage is, we're gonna live life together, and when you're down, I help you up, and when I'm down, you help me up, and we're strong. 1 + 1 = 3 in this case.
mm-hmm.
And when she was down, I wanted to pull her up, and then when I was down, she pulled me up. And I don't know if that. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I know with me and my experience, I probably wouldn't have done that in the whatever wave we were in.
Wow.
He didn't say
Wow.
that's what he believes.
That is
It
awesome.
was
Yeah.
hard to say that to me because I'm like,
Yeah.
do you
That,
realize what she's done? You know? And he's like, well, do whatever you want, do what you think's right, go to God and pray about it. He's
mm-hmm.
like, but that's what I believe, and that's what I believe the Bible says, and
Yeah.
that's look it up for yourself. And I'm just like, okay. And when I started to get rid of the other, I'm entitled to a happy life, like with a wife who's loving, and her vow said that. And he said to me, uh, it was him or someone else, one of the other guys, I can't remember. No, it was him. Your vows were for you,
Mm-hmm.
not for her.
Mm.
Her vows were for her. So if she broke her vows, that's her problem.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
he's like,
your personal vow. Yeah.
yeah, that's
That
your
is the
word
way
and
to
her
look
word.
at it. That's why we say I'm not I was telling my son, I'm not, and that was my final answer. I'm not responsible. And that is a cliche saying, but it's so true for how they treat me, but I am responsible for how I respond. And that's it. So by you saying that is your personal vow, like, yeah, that's between you and God. You made that vow. And he said it's better not to break a vow, right? To make a vow than to break one. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's huge. And it was awesome that you heard that truth and you were able to make that decision and it pointed you in the right direction.
yeah.
Awesome.
It
Yeah.
really made me double down. I was like, all right, I just gotta outlast some silliness. If I believe God can work miracles,
Hmm.
I believe he can. If
Yeah.
I believe that if he can do anything,
Yeah.
then he could save her.
Right.
And I just needed to wait. And he can save me. I just needed to work through it. I just needed to show up. And one
Mm.
step in front of the other. I might not be able to see her ever living honest life, but I'm going to take a step,
Do
even though I
your
can't see
part.
it. And then there's ground, and I just
Mm.
take another one. And
Yeah.
that might be you can go down to day by day, and that sounds rough. Like I'm living day to day right now.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I got down to second to second
Mm.
when this was all going on. It's like I'm living second to second right now, and that's kind of how I gauge it: minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, week to week.
Yeah.
You get down to second, you're ready to do something irrational, and you need to find someone that's more stable than you.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
people that I was able to turn to. So
Yeah. Awesome. And we're almost out of time, but I wanted to get this one last question in, about self-forgiveness. Um, how does that play in context of marriage, and how can it impact the relationship?
I firmly believe that if I'm not willing to accept that Christ has forgiven me, I'm not really able to forgive anyone else either. Because if
Mm,
I'm still holding on to all this resentment towards myself, like, how can I extend out what I don't have?
mm,
Give what I don't have already. So I think that without being able to work through that, and it's a daily thing, like I have to daily remember, like, I am forgiven,
mhm.
allow God to kind of like work through that. So I'm not saying it's just kind of like think and it's done. It's a
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Mm,
But I think that is where forgiveness can come from, is by first accepting the fact that like I am forgiven. And if I have that, then I can let it flow through me. Because I don't really think it's something we do. I think it's a process we participate in. Like God does all the work.
right. Absolutely.
Allow him to work, which
Yeah.
I think is only part of the process, is like get out of the way and let him do what only he can do.
Yeah.
for me, one, if you're judging others, you're going to judge yourself. I know the Bible says very clearly that if we judge other people, he will judge us.
Hmm.
He's going to judge us either way, but we will be judged. And I believe that process happens on this earth where if I go over and I'm very critical of my wife, who oh, she should have done this, she should have done that, and I'm entitled and whatever, and I'm angry and I'm not willing to forgive. Well, all of a sudden, everything that you've done within the marriage is not forgivable as well, and you're not going to forgive yourself. Like she might forgive me, but that's not. But I'm holding on to whatever else it is that
Hmm.
I've done. And unless you're willing to get rid of judgment of the other person, you're not going to be able to let that go yourself, I believe. And
Hmm.
we're still working through this. I think it's a lifelong process,
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
but
Uh-huh.
you have to do not hold on to that resentment and allow, again, daily choice, like Tanya said, to wake up and let it go. And it's hard and it builds, but you have to just become less judgmental yourself.
Hmm.
And then if you know you're judging people less and you feel that there's something about that that allows you to then start to give yourself some leeway and go, okay, well, I'm not perfect either.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I've done everything right. She did that to me. And it's like, well, you're going to do something wrong. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Yep.
You need to be able to forgive yourself for that and let
Yeah.
it go. And I
Yeah.
think that's the only way. And I agree with Tanya. The only way to do that is then believe that you find your identity in Christ.
Hmm. Yeah.
Believe that he died for our sins and that we don't have to carry that around. I don't see another way around that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. You got to humble yourself, and it is a big deal, have to tell myself I'm forgiven, and then I have to give grace to my husband and others, and that just puts it all in perspective when you look at yourself like you're not perfect, like you said, you're not perfect. You mess up, and you're gonna mess up, and they're gonna mess up. Just give grace. And yeah, so oh my God, thank you so much for coming on, guys. I want to give you a chance to just share your social medias and business or whatever with the audience. So go ahead so we can end really quick.
All right. So for our marriage coaching, it's through christianmarriagereboot.com.
Okay.
And then you can find, do you want to do your unschool?
Yeah, and we're one of the coaches with that program. There's a lot of coaches. How many do we have now?
I don't remember, like 10 or 12 couples.
Yeah, 10 or 12 couples are currently doing this. So it's a big production.
Okay.
As well. So I do my own personal thing as well. We kind of got our hands at a lot of things, which is fun for us. Something I do is we homeschool our children in a particular way. It's called unschooling. So I have a podcast called Unschooled Unleashed, Unlock Your Child's Genius. That's I offer coaching along with that to people who are interested to help them get over the hump of the fear of bringing their children home and taking on the responsibility of guiding them through life at this young age and learning and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick, one last thing. Sorry.
Okay.
radiantredemption.com, and then also Instagram and TikTok at radiant_redemption. And that's where I focus more on women's recovery. So if
awesome.
or to do like one-on-one with women, that's where I am at.
Yeah.
Okay. I will put all these links in the description box. Thank you to my listeners for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.